Ah, Disney. A company that I held dear to my heart at one point in time. It helped to shape my childhood with timeless classics. Animation as a form of media might not have been the same, let alone existed without them today. However, I can't really say the same thing about them today. Let you in on a fun fact. Did you know that Disney spent nearly $1 billion on complete flops? I mean, just look at this. This is the type of reckless spending that you would expect from your drunk uncle who wasted his entire life savings on a trip to the casinos in Vegas. Not a multi-billion-dollar company. Disney, what the hell are you doing? Now, I'm no accountant or anything, but even I can take a wild guess and say that this is not looking good. May I remind you that this is the same Disney who earlier this year, as stated by their current CEO Bob Iger, had to have mass layoffs which cost upward of up to 7,000 people their jobs. Jesus Christ, Disney. Considering that the average housing price is over $400,000, which is a dramatic 26% increase since the year 2020, and an average US citizen only makes about $28 an hour, I feel really bad for these people, especially since quite a large number of them were probably overworked and underpaid, and I highly doubt that most of them were able to find another line of work. But I guess that's the type of severity you've come to expect from the entertainment industry. It's definitely not all sunshine and rainbows at Disney, now is it? Anyway, let's get back on track. First, I'd like to talk a bit about Ant-Man 3. A film that had a budget of around $200 million and only made just about over $400 million at the box office. And no, that's not good enough. A film like this needed to make at least 3 times its budget for it to be successful, considering it had a blockbuster budget and the fact that you have to consider marketing costs. Huh. And here I thought MCU movie fatigue was a myth. But wait, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was a success. True. But that was only because it was the conclusion of the Guardians trilogy, and people wanted to see how it would end. We've been following these characters for years, and wanted to see how their story arcs would come to a conclusion, whereas Ant-Man 3, on the other hand, was marketed as the start of a new saga. And I had quite a few problems with it. Firstly, why would you introduce Kang the Conqueror, who is the overarching antagonist of this entire saga, in the first movie? That would have been like introducing Thanos in the first Iron Man film. Secondly, lackluster CGI and visual effects. Man, CGI in Hollywood has really regressed over the years. Seriously, Disney, stop overworking your VFX team and animators. When CGI from the mid-2000s looks better than today's CGI, you know there's a problem. Even Spy Kids 3D and Shark Boy and Lava Girl had better visual effects than this. Thirdly, the characters. Specifically one in particular, Casey Lang. Man, what an entitled brat. She is such a self-righteous and insufferable twat, especially towards Scott, her dad, just because he chose to retire from being a hero. Is she forgetting that he literally was the reason the Avengers were even able to come up with the idea to stop Thanos in the first place? Not to mention, how is she suddenly an expert at using the growing and shrinking technology when it took Scott several days to master it? Female empowerment, am I right? I really did not like her character at all. But I will give praise to Jonathan Majors and Paul Rudd. They were the highlights of this film. Rudd was his usual charming self, and Majors actually makes Kang a convincing villain. Too bad they were both wasted in this. Anyway, I've talked about this film too much. I'm getting a migraine Anyway, let's just move on. Next up, we have Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Alright, let's see how this one did at the box office. Wow. Just wow. You know, Disney, Maybe making a film about an aging Indy, played by Harrison Ford, who is 81 years old, by the way, would be a major turn-off for longtime fans, who are still trying to forget the previous misfire in this franchise that was Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. A film so divisive that some fans have completely written it off as non-canon. At least to Part 4's credit, it had Spielberg and Lucas working on it. I can't really say the same for Part 5. Another issue with this film is that who is it aimed at? It was trying way too hard to be both a nostalgic send-off for this franchise, as well as a movie chalked up full of fan service and homages to previous films. Which people would much rather be watching than this? It failed to attract younger audiences because, as I said earlier, the star is 81 years old. What young person wants to watch a film about an old man anyway? And it also failed to attract older audiences because they probably found the film too silly and goofy. It also doesn't help that the marketing campaign for this movie was all over the place. Was it aiming at the already established fan base or at a wider audience? As a result of the marketing fiasco, the film fell way below box office projections and barely even earned its budget back, especially considering it was one of the most expensive movies ever made. The film bombed. End of story. The Little Mermaid 2023. Let me just put it this way. If you've seen this film, then you've already seen this film. God, this is The Lion King 2019 all over again. Despite this film making over $500 million at the box office, I still wouldn't consider it a major box office success. Because based on its budget, and factoring in marketing costs, it would have probably needed to make over 700 or 800 million at the box office to break even. And I am so sick and tired of people on social media saying that it was one of the highest grossing films of the year, so it's obviously a success. No, I don't want to hear any of that bullcrap. This film underperformed whether you like it or not, and even Disney confirmed it. Let's get the obvious cat out of the bag. The controversial casting of the lead actress. You know, it's kind of funny that they got a black actress to play a character in a setting that is based in Europe in the Renaissance period, especially considering the fact that it was written by Hans Christian Andersen, a 19th century Danish writer, who was obviously white, by the way. And are people noticing this weird trend nowadays in Hollywood of replacing characters who were originally redheads with people of other ethnicities? Another strange thing I noticed is that Ariel's father, King Triton, is played by a man of Spanish descent, while her sisters are very weirdly ethnically diverse. Aren't they supposed to be blood related? Either they're all adopted, or King Triton really gets around, if you know what I mean. Another thing I didn't like about this film was the character Scuttle, played by Awkwafina, who once again is playing yet another annoying comic relief in a movie. She did it as Katie in Shang-Chi, as well as Sisu in Raya and the Last Dragon. I did like her performance as Miss Tarantula in The Bad Guys, though, and just when I was starting to warm up to her, along came this annoying seabird. You know, it says a lot when Melissa McCarthy, of all people, was the highlight of your film. The same woman who has been in such critically acclaimed masterpieces like Ghostbusters 2016, The Happy Time Murders, Superintelligence, and Thunder Force. But I actually found myself rather enjoying her hammy and over-the-top performance, and I could really tell she was enjoying herself. It's just too bad that wasn't enough to redeem this movie in my eyes. And finally, that brings us to Marvel's Secret Invasion. Let's see what people thought of it, shall we? Yikes. Well, that about sums it up. Man, this show just screams wasted potential in my opinion. One major flaw of the series is how underutilized the cast was. They were either killed or replaced by Skrulls for the sake of shock value, with little explanation. I mean, you literally have Ross, who was replaced by a Skrull in episode 1. Yet this plot twist doesn't really amount to much anyway, because the Skrull gets killed off quite abruptly. And even Rhodey himself got replaced by a Skrull. And doesn't even do anything other than being the mole for the other side. I mean, how cool would it have been if we got Skrull Rhodey actually have some action scenes? Oh well. Looks like we can't have nice things. Another missed opportunity was when President Ritson discovers the truth about the Skrulls and their plans to wipe out humanity. He declares that all Skrulls on Earth should be executed on sight, which leads to mass paranoia among the general public, leading to the deaths of both non-hostile Skrulls and regular humans as well, including the British Prime Minister. Sounds epic, huh? Well, too bad. Because all that only happens in the last 10 minutes of the final episode. Seriously, talk about wasting a perfectly good premise. It was all laid out perfectly and the writers somehow still messed it up. It's really quite amusing that the marketing had us believe that this series would go for a darker and edgier plot than we're used to from Marvel, but no. Instead, it feels like your typical MCU series with all of their standard tropes and quirks. And as a result of doing that, Marvel, you just left your fan base as well as general audiences dissatisfied with the final product, which led to it becoming the lowest rated Marvel show on Disney+. This is why at the end of the day, Disney, you've got to wake up and realize, was all of this really worth it? Unnecessarily spending all that revenue on projects that were colossal failures, dooming the company financially, as well as tarnishing their reputation as a whole in the eyes of the general movie-going public? This is why I miss the good old days of Disney, when they put a lot of thought and care into their movies, and I will forever keep yearning for these good times. Alas, we cannot dwell on the past, and have to keep moving forward towards the future, and I someday hope that Disney can go back to how they used to be. But sadly, we all know that will almost likely never come to pass anytime soon. Anyway, what do I know? I'm just some random guy on the internet giving his own opinion. So, take it or leave it.